Welcome to The Explainer, a segment in Politikali Konekted that unpacks complex moments and policies that shape our political culture. If you haven't already, please subscribe on all our platforms where you can find these episodes on YouTube, on Spotify, and now on Apple Podcasts. So you can listen to us wherever you are, whatever you're doing. You can plug us and just play. In this episode, we'll be diving into Kenya's political ecosystem. In our previous episode, we explored the evolution of political parties since independence. And since then, Kenya has gone through significant changes in the structuring of our political parties. After independence, we went into a single-party state and then went into a multi-party state, and then we have the 2010 constitution that completely redefined political parties and how we govern ourselves. So, where do we begin when it comes to political ecosystems? So, today we'll look closer to the existing ecosystem. We will unpack how political rights, political parties act, civic education, constitutional institutions such as IBC and ORPP, which is the Office of the Registrar of Political Parties, how they shape our political system today. We'll also explore the transformative vision that is the 2010 Constitution and how it redefined our political parties. The Kenya's 2010 Constitution redefined political parties. They were no longer a briefcase entity or a private vehicle purely to attaining political power and influence. Under Article 1991, political parties were now conceptualized as public institutions tasked with a clear constitutional mandate to promote democracy, foster national unity, and enhance accountability. This change was radical. Political parties were no longer meant to be entities bound to individual leaders and ethnic enclaves. They were to be institutions designed to serve public good. For years, Kenyan political parties were seen to be having owners, powerful elites who wielded them as tools for personal influence. Loyalty to these leaders often superseded the loyalty to democratic principles. But in a participatory democracy, ideally, political parties are meant to have a deeper purpose. The Constitution envisions a democracy where citizens weren't just passive spectators. They were active participants expressing their collective will through political parties that act as conduits for public interest. Political theorists like John Locke and John Stuart Mill argued that political parties should exist to serve public interest, not individual ambitions. This was the kind of thinking that informed the effort of the drafters of the Constitution to break away from the historical context of personality-driven politics, where political parties were pretty much the personal property of populists or opportunists, or even both. The vision was one where political parties were to act as representative bodies, elevating the voice of the people. Political parties were meant to be the bridge between the government and the governed.
To realize the potential of political parties as public institutions, the Constitution embeds political rights that empower each citizen and forms a broad array of political rights, marking a substantial shift in the legal protections of citizens' democratic freedoms. Article 38 guarantees every citizen's right to participate in political affairs. That's right, there are such things as political rights, including the right to vote, to campaign, and to run for office without fear or favor. Articles 33 and 37 further support these rights by safeguarding freedom of expression and assembly, respectively, recognizing these freedoms as essential to activate democratic participation. Freedom of expression includes the right to seek, receive, and impart information and ideas, like we're doing right now. It is what is meant to enable citizens to critique government policies, advocate for change, and express dissent without fear of reprisal. The challenge lies in balancing the freedom of expression with the need to maintain public order and national cohesion. More directly, Article 38 enshrines the right to political participation, including the right to register as a voter, vote in free and fair elections, and vie for public office. This right aims to ensure that every Kenyan citizen has a voice in the political process, reinforcing the principles of democratic representation and accountability. The Constitution actually requires that the state should create an enabling environment for political participation, making it accessible to all citizens, regardless of gender, socioeconomic status, or geographic location. It may be easy to take it for granted or even seem obvious, but it cannot be overstated that political rights, including freedoms of expression, assembly, and participation, form the bedrock of democratic society. The word democracy is from two Greek words, demos, meaning people, and kratia, meaning rule, together meaning rule by the people. And this is why numerous cases on public participation in our courts may seem irritating or perplexing or a nuisance to some people, but it is part of the transformative constitutionalism that is meant to shift our culture away from the limited view of perceiving democracy only as elections every 5 years. The rule by the people is meant to be a continuous part of political life year in, year out. And political parties are a key component in helping bring this ideal to life. It is in this context that political parties become essential cogs in the wheel as vehicles that help realize this. Edmund Burke viewed political parties as essential for representing the collective will of the people. He argued that parties enable individuals with shared values and principles to unite, providing a stable and organized platform for political representation. Political parties are meant to play a crucial role in policy articulation as they develop manifestos and campaign platforms that outline their policy priorities. During election cycles, parties are meant to use these platforms to communicate their visions for governance, economic development, and social progress. Parties' policy proposals provide voters with options, enabling them to make informed decisions based on competing agendas. In practice, however, it's often superficial. Many parties lack clear ideological positions, and policy consistency is frequently compromised by shifting alliances and personal interests.
So I'm sure many of you are asking, or many people have asked, how does one become a member of a political party in Kenya? And what activities and responsibilities do you as a member of a political party enjoy? So first of all, to become a member of a political party, all you have to do is either be of voting age and not be a member of another political party. So the Office of the Registrars of Political Parties, ORPP, have a portal where you can check first whether you are a member of any political party. Then after that, you can choose out of the roster of political parties that there are registered under ORPP, which political party that you want to join. Now, different political parties have different modes of how you can join. Some of them have online platforms. You go to the website, fill in a form, put in your details, and then join them, and then press join to join the party. Others use a USSD code where you go on your phone and press star something something hash, where you become a member. Other parties, it's free to become a member, and other parties, you pay a certain fee, as low as 20 bob, as high as 50,000. It depends on the level of membership in which you want to join. What is happening? So the Office of the Registrars of Political Parties, ORPP, maintains a centralized database of membership of political parties to prevent dual registration and ensuring compliance with the law. So as a member of a political party, you have the right to participate in political activities such as policy formulation, party stands. You also participate in party elections of electing party officials like your Secretary General, head of the National Youth League, the Women's League, and all different committees that political parties have. As a member, you can also seek elective position in different positions in the political party. And members are also expected to uphold the party's constitution and contribute to its objectives. Engaging in political parties, by the way, is not just about seeking office. It's about contributing to shaping the policies and holding leaders accountable in that political party. Now let us look into the Political Parties Act. Now, we see seeds of this planted in our constitution that partly germinate under this act. The key legislation that further affirms that political parties are indeed public entities accountable to the citizens that they serve. Constitutional rights are only as strong as the mechanisms that protect them. This is where legislation like the Political Parties Act comes into play, providing a framework for formation, regulation, and functioning of political parties in Kenya. The Political Parties Act aims to institutionalize democratic principles within political parties and promote a multi-party system that is inclusive, accountable, and ideologically oriented. One of the primary objectives of the Act is to promote transparency and accountability within political parties. The Act even requires political parties to disclose their sources of funding, maintain accurate financial records, and submit regular audits to the Office of the Registrar of Political Parties. The Act also establishes mechanisms for party funding. Political parties that secure at least 3% of the total vote during the general elections are eligible for funding from the Political Parties Fund. This funding is intended to support political parties in fulfilling their functions, including civic education, policy formulation, and promoting the participation of marginalized groups. The Political Parties Act outlines several requirements for registering a political party in Kenya. This includes submitting the party constitution, so that means the members must have met and agreed on a constitution, presenting a membership list with registered members from a majority of Kenyan counties, that means there's representation across the board, and providing financial records. These parties' objectives, names, and symbols must also align with national values that is in Chapter 10 of the Constitution and be approved by the ORPP, the Office of the Registrar of Political Parties. These requirements are designed to ensure that political parties are inclusive, transparent, and committed to national unity. The requirement for geographic representation, mandating that parties are registered members in majority of the 47 counties in Kenya. This aims to prevent the formation of regional or ethnic-based parties. While the requirement promotes national cohesion, it does pose a challenge for new parties attempting to establish a broad membership base, especially in rural and marginalized areas where logistical and resource barriers are prevalent. The reality is that parties with strong national networks struggle to meet these representation thresholds, limiting the diversity of the political voices in the political landscape. So now you're seeing how political parties really play a role in the political culture and landscape that we have.
Another key feature of the Political Parties Act is that it is also underpinned by the bold objective of shifting the paradigm of our politics away from ethnicity and toward ideology and policy. The Act seeks to institutionalize political parties, moving them away from being mere vehicles for elections to becoming foundational pillars of democracy that contribute to nation building. The Political Parties Act encourages parties to adopt clear ideological positions rather than relying on ethnic or regional identities. This principle aims to build a system where parties compete based on policy ideas and governance strategies, fostering a more mature and policy-driven political landscape. The Act stipulates that parties must align their manifestos with national values and cohesion, promoting unity over division. Inclusivity is also a fundamental principle of the Act, which requires political parties to reflect Kenya's diversity in their membership and leadership structures. Parties must uphold gender quotas and promote representation from marginalized groups, ensuring that all communities have a voice in the political process. By encouraging parties to adopt inclusive practices, the Act aims to promote national cohesion and mitigate ethnic polarization that has historically characterized Kenyan politics. One of the Act's most critical provisions is a requirement for parties to register with the Office of the Registrar of Political Parties, a novel feature of the 2010 Constitution. The Registrar's Office plays a critical role in maintaining political order and protecting the integrity of our multi-party system. It established an oversight and regulatory mechanism to ensure that parties operate within the law and not as personal enterprises, briefcase parties like in the past. And it also mandates financial disclosures, gender representation, and inclusivity. The introduction of the Political Parties Act was really a major shift toward moving parties away from being personality-driven vehicles to public institutions. However, enforcing these standards is a challenging reality. The simple fact is you can't legislate away culture. Some parties still evade transparency requirements, operating as extensions of powerful individuals who get away with it because, to borrow the words of the Prophet Hosea, my people perish for lack of knowledge. The simple fact is, the strength of a law lies in its enforcement. Without rigorous enforcement, the vision of political parties as political institutions remains unrealized.
Let's put a pause on that and shift gears a little to discuss another aspect of our political ecosystem, which is coalitions. Now, this is something that we have had in our last general election. But coalition building has always been part and parcel in our Kenyan politics. But historically, many of the coalitions were just temporary arrangements serving individual interests more than the collective goals. The 2010 Constitution, however, envisioned coalitions as representative alliances built on policy commitments and common principles. Game changers in this regard were the coalitions like the National Rainbow Coalition, NAC, the 202 Coalition, and the 2008 Grand Coalition. And they were game changers because they significantly disrupted the realm of possibilities and showed the power of cohesion, what could be unlocked by uniting Kenya's diverse political landscape. These coalitions also highlighted a persistent issue. Personality-driven alliances often dissolve when individual ambitions diverge. The new constitutional dispensation, however, demonstrated a real commitment to learn from the past through the introduction of a requirement of coalition agreements to be formalized, outlining the terms and the principles binding each party. This effort to make the coalitions transparent and policy-driven was part of a broader goal to shift Kenyan politics away from personality-based coalitions to one founded on common principles. Coalitions allow smaller parties to also amplify their influence and enable larger parties to consolidate support across diverse regions and ethnic groups. Following the end of apartheid in South South Africa established a government of national unity that included multiple political parties. This model provided representatives of diverse political groups and promoted stability during a critical transition period. Kenya's Grand Coalition government mirrored the same of this model. However, coalitions also represent challenges such as power sharing conflicts, ideological differences, and shifting of alliances, which compromise their stability and effectiveness, something that we have seen in our most recent past within the coalition of Azimio and the coalition of Kenya Kwanza Alliance. Coalitions formed from electoral convenience may lack ideological cohesion, resulting to conflicts over policy direction. In the Grand Coalition government, the lack of a shared policy framework to lead frequent disputes between PNU and ODM complicated decision-making and governance. Disagreements over cabinet appointments, legislative leadership, and resources allocated can create tensions as seen in the Grand Coalition government. So, where are these coalition agreements meant to be taken, or who's supposed to have custody of them? I'm telling you, the 2010 Constitution also thought of this. The drafters thought of this. Earlier, we mentioned the Office of the Registrar of Political Parties, ORPP. And when things go south and disagreements arise, either within the parties or across coalitions, there is also the Political Parties Dispute Tribunal. It was established to resolve disputes arising within and between political parties, providing an alternative to lengthy court proceedings. The tribunal's mandate include intra-parties dispute. It addresses disputes within parties, such as conflicts over leadership, candidate selection, and adherence to party constitution. Inter-party disputes, it also resolves conflicts between parties, especially during coalition building, alliance disputes, and post-election conflicts. Another mandate is inter-parties disputes, which resolve conflicts between parties, especially during coalition building, alliance disputes, and post-election conflicts. With the increase of coalition building, the Political Parties Dispute Tribunal has played a pivotal role in managing disputes related to party defection and coalition agreements. Another mandate is compliance and enforcement. Through its ruling, the Political Parties Dispute Tribunal enforces adherence to party regulations and national laws, ensuring that the parties operate within the established legal framework. This tribunal has ruled on cases involving the enforcement of gender quotas within party leadership. In one case, members of a political party challenged the party's failure to meet the legally mandated gender representation in its executive committee. The Political Parties Dispute Tribunal ruling required the party to restructure its leadership and meet the gender requirements, reinforcing the commitment to inclusivity mandated by the Political Parties Act. The political parties, the PPDT, plays an important role in maintaining stability within Kenya's political party system, allowing a timely dispute resolution and reducing the need for extended litigation. The Office of the Registrar of the Political Parties and the Political Parties Dispute Tribunal, PPDT, serves as crucial institutions in Kenya's political ecosystem, upholding the principle that parties exist to serve the public good. Montesquieu's theory of separation of power argues that independent regulatory bodies are essential for power balancing within our political system, something that is anchored in our 2010 Constitution. The ORPP and PPDT embodies this principle, acting as checks on party leadership and ensuring that parties operate within legal boundaries. While ORPP and PPDT have made significant strides, limited resources and procedural constraints hinder their full effectiveness. Expanding their oversight capabilities is essential to prevent parties from slipping back into personality-driven politics instead of fostering accountability. These institutions are designed to be guardians of public accountability, ensuring that political parties uphold their constitutional role. However, for them to succeed, they need more support, both in resources and public awareness.
In all this, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, IEBC, also plays a pivotal role in protecting electoral integrity. Beyond administering elections, it is meant to oversee campaign compliance, monitor party conduct, and ensure fair competition, at least in an ideal sense. In a broader sense, the primary mandate of the IEBC is that of overseeing Kenya's electoral process, including voter registration, boundary delimitation, and election management. And boundary delimitation is very important for distribution of resources across the country. The IEBC's role is critical in maintaining public confidence in the electoral system and ensuring that elections are conducted fairly and transparently. Key responsibilities of the IEBC include voter registration and education. The IEBC conducts voter registration drives to ensure all eligible citizens are registered and informed of their rights. This includes continuous voter registration and mass voter registration close to elections. They also have a mandate in terms of civic education. Now, in terms of boundary delimitation and to ensure fair representation, IEBC periodically reviews boundaries based on population distribution. And in terms of election oversight, the Commission oversees election logistics, ballot counting, and announcements of results, working to uphold the principles of, again, transparency and accountability. However, the IEBC does face significant challenges, including logistical issues, political interference, some would say both from within the country and outside, and other issues like budgetary constraints. Several examples highlight the challenges Kenya faces in upholding electoral integrity and protecting political rights. The 2013 presidential election was marred by allegations of irregularities, with the matter going to the Supreme Court. While the court upheld the election, the case exposed weaknesses in electoral logistics, voter registration accuracy, and the security of voting materials. The IEBC faced criticism for failing to address these issues, raising concerns about its preparedness and the integrity of the electoral process. Fast forward, in an unprecedented ruling, Kenya's Supreme Court under Chief Justice David Maraga Emeritus nullified the results of the 2017 presidential election, citing irregularities in vote tallying and the transmission process. Following the ruling, the IEBC faced pressure to implement reforms to improve its systems and ensure a credible repeat election. Another challenge has been technology adoption, which featured heavily in the just concluded NADCO talks and the proposed amendments to the election laws that followed thereafter. And the IEBC's adoption of digital systems such as the Kenya Integrated Electoral Management Systems, KIMS-KIT, which aim to improve transparency and reduce human error, faced issues such as system malfunctions and accusations of hacking vifaranga via computer, raised questions about the reliability of digital solutions. And so enhancing digital security and operational resilience is therefore crucial for the IEBC to maintain the credibility of elections in the digital age. Implementing robust digital transparency measures such as real-time vote tallying, digital tracking of voter registration, and open access to election data, Fungua Sava, can increase public trust in electoral outcomes. By and large, the effective functioning of Kenya's democracy relies on a delicate interplay between political rights, political parties, and the various institutions established by the 2010 constitution.
But we can all agree that we have come a mighty long way. Before 2010, Kenya's political system was characterized by concentration of power within the executive branch. The presidency wielded substantial control over key institutions, including the judiciary and the legislature, limiting checks and balances and enabling authoritarian practices. The Independence Constitution, which had established a parliamentary system, was amended multiple times to strengthen the presidential powers and weaken the opposition. These amendments eroded democratic institutions, restricted political freedoms, and fostered a climate of repression. Ethnic favoritism and regional imbalances in resource distribution created an exclusionary political environment. Almost seems like I'm talking about today. Political representation was often limited to elite networks, and marginalized communities were largely excluded from decision-making processes. So we see that the 2010 Constitution introduced far-reaching reforms to address these structural flaws in Kenya's political system, particularly focusing on decentralizing power, establishing independent institutions, and safeguarding political rights.
Before we close our submissions, it may be worth briefly examining alternative models of democracy, which may offer insights into whether political parties are indispensable in Kenya's political ecosystem. While political parties are the dominant structure for democratic representation worldwide, alternative models or methods illustrate other ways of organizing democratic participation. Even then, they may not necessarily be mutually exclusive with party representation. So one example is direct democracy. What does this mean? Participation in politics can also take place through a system of direct democracy where citizens participate in decision-making directly rather than through elected representatives. This model has been implemented in various forms, such as referenda and citizen assemblies. While direct democracy provides greater citizen control, it may be impractical to implement for the entire system. For example, if citizens were to vote on every bill in parliament directly, it may only be suitable for things like referendum, but aspects like public participation do give a measure of direct participation. Another model is that of non-party democracies, where governance structures are based on consensus building rather than partisan competition. Examples include local governance models, where leaders are chosen based on merit and community consensus rather than party affiliation. While non-party systems promote unity and reduce polarization, which was the part of the ideological appeal of the one-party state under Section 2A, and as articulated by the likes of Mwalimu Nyerere, in reality, they're difficult to implement, especially where power is centralized. Another emerging alternative, which is anchored in the constitution in Kenya, is the rise of independent candidates and issue-based movements. They seek to challenge the dominance of political parties and offer an alternative. Independent candidates offer voters a choice outside of traditional party structures, often focusing on specific issues rather than party agendas. While this model provides flexibility, it does lack the organizational capacity and coherence that political parties are meant to offer, thus limiting its ability to sustain long-term visions and institutional memory.
Ultimately, we take the view that political parties are essential components of Kenya's democratic landscape, providing a framework of representation, policy articulation, and electoral mobilization. Despite challenges such as ethnic-based mobilization and political and public disillusionment, parties remain indispensable in organizing political participation and promoting democratic governance. However, to fulfill their democratic potential, Kenyan parties must address internal issues and adopt inclusive practices and develop policy-driven agendas. As Kenya's democracy continues to evolve, political parties have the unique opportunity to strengthen their role as agents of democratic change. By prioritizing inclusivity, ideological consistency and transparency, parties can rebuild public trust and contribute to a more unified and vibrant political landscape. Ultimately, continued relevance of political parties in Kenya will depend on their ability to adapt to societal needs, represent diverse interests, and champion democratic values.
Kenya's shift from a centralized to a decentralized political framework is a reflection of what can be achieved and unlocked through transformative constitutionalism. And because the Constitution is a living document, ever evolving, we invite you to consider that there are still many issues to explore, expand, and deepen in our political ecosystem. For instance, should we consider adopting a proportional representation system? Can political parties be used as an avenue to strengthen devolution and seek to grant counties more fiscal autonomy to further empower local voices, further aligning Kenya's political system with our democratic aspirations? The questions are myriad. We can only hope we have sparked your thinking in this episode, enriched your political consciousness, or maybe even provoked you into contrary view. Ultimately and hopefully, we can all agree that this is more than about laws and institutions. And it is definitely more than about personality cults and a culture of blind sycophancy. We hope you join us in the next episode when we reflect on the last 3 episodes where we've looked at the history of political parties in Kenya and also looked into our current political ecosystem and the institutions established in the 2010 Constitution that speak to that political ecosystem. We hope that ultimately it has been instructive and edifying.
And for the next episode, would like to hear any questions you may have. So go into the comment section. We are on TikTok, we are on Instagram, we are on Facebook, whatever is your favorite platform from all of them. And comment and give us any questions that you'd like us to further explain from this series.
As we close, we understand that the economy is tough and things are expensive. Lakini kusubscribe ni free. Na notifications hazikuli bundles. See you soon on a screen near you. Perfect.